Welcome to 9to5Mac Watch Time, a podcast series exploring the world of Apple Watch and how it impacts people's lives. My next guest is Shawn Dorsey from Nebraska, someone I consider an Apple Watch warrior. How are you doing, Shawn?
I'm doing pretty good, Zach. How's it going?
Not bad, not bad. Thanks for being here.
No problem.
First off, I want you, Shawn, to plug your social media because I follow you on Instagram. And that's how I know about you. And you also post videos on YouTube. And so where can people find both of those things?
So on Instagram, I am at s.musings, and on YouTube, I'm s.musing as well.
Okay.
I have like a lot of interests.
Yeah.
So like I just got a drone probably just before Christmas. So I'm gonna mess around with that and trying to get better at videography and photography with the drone. And then I got a new camera right at Christmas. I got a Canon M50. So I'm trying to step up my photography game from just using the iPhone.
Yeah.
I mean, I have the 11 Pro Max and it has like a great camera and great video, but I kind of wanted to step it up and try to do different things and learn photography. I feel like it's easier to learn on the actual camera than on a phone.
Mm.
So you're so used to using it just an auto, letting it take pictures.
Yeah.
And then with a camera, you kind of have to do more work. So I like that. And then I love like pop culture, especially movies, comic books. So I do like movie reviews on my YouTube, and I like all kinds of movies, but mainly like action movies and anything to do with comic books.
Yeah, you're very consistent. I mean, if there's a movie out there that you've seen, you've got something to say about it, which I think is really cool. For the drone stuff, so I think you've got a Mavic Mini, is that right? From DJI?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, cool. A few years ago, I did the same thing. It was like after Christmas, I think in 2016 or so, that I got a Phantom 4 from DJI that I bought, and I loved it. And back then, the drone stuff was like fewer restrictions. It was just less regulated,
Yes.
Before people were like flying them and disrupting airports and everything.
Right.
And man, it was so cool. Like you could go, the coolest thing I did, and I've got a video somewhere of this, but just recording in my neighborhood to go just straight up, and it was nighttime on the ground, and then you kept flying up, and it was daytime above the clouds because the sun, like, was the clouds were covering up the sun, and it made it nighttime basically,
right?
Because of like bad weather, I guess. But it was totally bright above the clouds. It was like, whoa, this is a different perspective than I've ever seen before.
Yeah, that's why I got it. I've been wanting one, and I keep putting it off, saying, "Oh, I'm not really going to be able to do much with it." But then I was like, I got a good deal on the Mavic Mini, and I was like, you know what? This is like the perfect price point to get started. And then with all the regulations and stuff going on, it was like, of course, it being so light, it kind of falls below that. It's kind of like a toy.
Yeah.
So, but you get good video, you get really good pictures, and I mean, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it's pretty cool. It's good enough for me for now anyway. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of fun to just fly it around. The bad part is in Nebraska, it's like always a wind blowing. It's always windy.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes it tougher because it's smaller.
Mm-hmm.
But I try to fly at least once or twice a week.
That's where
get out there and practice.
Exactly. That's where the Phantom, which is, a bigger drone altogether, was awesome. Because it was really good against the wind. You'd never see the camera in the video, even if the wind was blowing the drone around.
Right.
I sold that to my uncle in South Florida for him to use for his landscaping business. And he's taken some amazing, just like not even video, but just shots of like his work. But I've got a Mavic Pro, so it's smaller, but and I got it when I had the Phantom because I was like, this is more portable and I'll take it more places. And that's true. It's just, I wish there was like a clear successor to the Phantom 4, because I think they're on like 4 version 2, but it's not really a 5, and they're not, and they've even like ran out of stock of that one at some point. So it's not clear that that's where they want to go. But it's really neat. And then I've also got a Skydio R1 that the company Skydio sent me last year because it works with the Apple Watch. And so you have to have your iPhone with you, but it's more about it, you can like fly it, on your own, like direct it and everything with your iPhone. But the big thing that it's great at is all the autonomous stuff where it tracks you or your car, or you can have it do like different modes, like, do a big spin around or, a lot of cool stuff. And so from the watch app, you can kind of program it to do different things as long as your iPhone's like near you, because it can't work with just the watch. But you can totally like have your iPhone in a backpack and, go for a bike ride and program, see the viewfinder of like what it sees and then program what it's doing. So, they've since made a Skydio 2. They dropped the R, and, it's cheaper because the first one was like super expensive. I'm glad they sent it to me because I wouldn't have bought it. But the Skydio 2 is like around, maybe it's like $2,000. So it's still expensive, but not as much. Maybe it's actually $1,000. And so I asked to review one, and they're going to send one next month, and they've got some news, I guess a feature update for it. So yeah, it was really cool seeing you get into that scene because the drone stuff is like, if you don't like have like a business need for it, it can feel like an expensive toy. But as long as, like you're saying, you go out there once or twice a week and do something with it, and that's so cool. And, I even used one when I had the Apple Watch Series 3 to review. I wanted to like do something special, cause I had it early. And so, I had my friend control the drone, and I just like went for a run on the bridge near us and got like just a shot, or like actually I think I got some video of it. It's just like, it's kind of what you see like in an Apple video or something. So, it's cool stuff.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely different. And I like getting the different perspectives and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've got to be like paying attention to it where you can't like, launch it in the sky and like walk away. So it's a thing, kind of like what workouts are probably for both of us, but it's a time where you're not looking at your phone and you're not, reading about, sad news and stuff, and it's like your full attention is on this object in the sky, for safety reasons and everything. So that's a cool hobby.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's definitely a way to disconnect from anything else and just for that time when you're flying. And that's one of the things I like about the Mavic Mini. I can fly for probably 20, 25 minutes on a battery. And I brought the Fly More pack. So I have 3 batteries. So usually I'm out there for like 40, 45 minutes. And then I'll bring the camera and I'll take pictures. So usually I'm out taking pictures, flying and stuff for like an hour, hour and a half. And it's a good way to decompress, especially if you had a stressful day or a stressful week. Just decompress and be away from everything and just concentrate on that.
Totally. And for the photography stuff, I also saw that from your Instagram. You're not doing bad at all. It's really good. and just like with the drone stuff, so you live in Omaha, Nebraska? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I live in Omaha.
So that's a place I've never been. And it's cool to see like, it's kind of a unique place compared to like the East Coast and the West Coast. And I live in the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, where you see just a different view than what you'd see outside. It's you kind of have like a unique, or if you're coming from one of those coastal cities, then you've got a kind of a unique area to shoot, whether it's drones or photography.
Yeah, I'm originally from Maryland, so I lived in Baltimore before I came here. So it was a big change for me coming from the East Coast in a city that people are always out and about.
Yeah.
No matter what's going on, it could be a snowstorm, it could be whatever. There's always people around. Where here, there's like almost never people outside. And it's weird because like even if it's really nice out, you'll see people occasionally running or doing fitness stuff outside. Or you may see a gathering or two, but it's not like back home where there's always people out.
That's right.
So it's definitely a different perspective, and people here are really super, almost frighteningly friendly. Where you'll have like almost an in-depth conversation with anybody in the grocery store and just walking around. If you do see somebody in the street, and it's just way different for me than being on the East Coast and people kind of like looking at you, and you get the keep your distance look all the time.
Yeah.
Where here it's nothing like that.
Yeah, it's amazing how different in one country cultures can be based on like population. I used to live in Delray Beach, Florida, which is between West Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale, about an hour and a half from Miami. And, it was like, might as well be like a suburb of New York. So it was just very different from anywhere in the South. And, when I would travel back home to see family and friends in Alabama and Mississippi, like even something is like ordering food at a restaurant was just like the friendliest interaction. I had went, like over a year without visiting back home when I lived there. And it was like, this is weird. Like it's really friendly.
Yeah. When I go home now, it's like, wow, why is everybody so mean?
Yeah. And I was kind of like, I had gotten adjusted and kind of assimilated, I guess. And so I was more like, like my first time at the DMV, I kind of like learned my lesson of how you got to interact with people there. And
definitely.
Like, and I got to like kind of like just like let my guard down back home. It's totally different. And also with the photography stuff, we'll get to the watch stuff very soon. But with the photography stuff, you mentioned your Canon M50, and so that's like I think it's like a mirrorless camera, right?
Yes, it's a mirrorless camera.
So not as big and complicated as like a DSLR, but it's a mirrorless camera. I had a Sony A5500 for a few years, like 2016 to 2019. And it was one day where, and compared to the iPhone, like this is the thing, especially if you got kids or, something you really care about taking pictures of. If I look back at my iPhone photography of my kids, like every year they're older, the pictures are much better because the camera improves that much each year. But if you've got one camera that is like a dedicated camera, like a Canon or a Sony, then it's like where the iPhone wants to go eventually. And you might take fewer pictures with it than you would with your iPhone because it's not always with you. But the pictures that you do take will be like timeless in a way that iPhone photography just can't be until it reaches some point that it wants to go to. I did sell that camera though, because I got to a point where I was taking like a picture, a few pictures a month with it. And, I was getting really obsessed. I was on an outdoor run with the Apple Watch, and I was just really obsessed with not having my phone with me for the sake of screen time and like, mental focus and everything. And, so I thought, I wonder if I can sell this camera that I've got, but still buy one that's much smaller, like more like iPhone size, but not have an iPhone in it, because I really enjoy like taking my kids to the park or the beach and having the Apple Watch, but not having the phone with me. But then I'm not taking pictures like I want to, and something I care about. So I sold it and I bought a Sony RX100. I think it's Mach 7 or Mach 6 at the time. And, it's tremendous. Like it's a very compact camera. And the Sony A5500, I had two lenses for it. One was like shorter range and one was for longer range. And with the RX100, it's just got it's like a compact digital camera. But not like what you'd buy, a decade ago, where it's like really, really bad. It's like, wow, imagine as like phones get better, so do digital cameras. And it was expensive and everything, but like it's awesome. And so now it's part of my routine frequently to, go out with the kids or like go visit. I visited my mom out of town, 3 hours away. It was last year for Mother's Day weekend and her birthday weekend. And I only brought my camera and my Apple Watch and a charger for the Apple Watch. And I left the phone at home. That was like my gift to her was quality time like that and still taking pictures. And, it was so neat. And there was a funny moment for that weekend. I've probably mentioned before, but, where I went out to dinner with her and my stepdad and some of their friends. And there was a moment where they were all looking at their phone as we were like waiting for our food. And I didn't bring mine. So I didn't have that distraction. And I was just like the young person kind of looking around and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's the oddball that day.
That's right. All right. Let's talk about some watch stuff. So, a few things. I believe I like to get into the history of like watch wearing with my guest and then the Apple Watch. And a lot of times, for guests, it's that they didn't wear a watch before the Apple Watch, and so that's their first watch. But I believe you've got an analog watch in your rotation. So kind of what is your answer to that sort of question? Your history with watches and the Apple Watch and analog watches today.
So I've always been a watch wearer. Like I remember having a Casio digital watch when I was a kid. I had the calculator watch. Like I've always had a watch, and I wore analog watches forever for work, and I just liked the way they looked. And I kind of had a collection I probably had up to 12 or 13 watches that I wore.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had got the Apple Watch Series 0 as a gift, and I didn't really see the need for it. So I was like, well, how is this going to make my life how is this going to impact my life when I have the iPhone? I can just reach in my pocket, grab the iPhone out, and do what I need to do. This seems so limited. I really wasn't going to spend the money, but I had got it. So I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a try. And from the time I put on the Series 0, I really don't wear my analog watches anymore. Like, I've given probably 6 or 7 of them away to my kids.
Uh-huh.
And I just almost exclusively wear my Apple Watch, except every once in a while I'll pull out. I have a Fossil, and I have what else do I have? I don't even remember. It's a couple other watches that I may wear for like an event, like company dinner or something like that. But otherwise, I almost always have my Apple Watch on. I just still love the analog watches, but I'm definitely Apple Watch 90%, 95% of the time.
Yeah, I've looked at analog watches just recently because one of my big interests is space history and news, and like seeing watches that astronauts wore or still wear today. Like you'll often see astronauts today wear a digital watch and an analog watch, and it's one of those things where I start looking at some of the just under $100 watches that look really nice, and I kind of want one of those, but I don't think I'll ever wear it because I'm too deep into my Apple Watch, and I just love it. And I would just collect the analog watch, I guess, and like kind of look at it, but not wear it. Can you say who gifted you kind of generally, who gifted you the watch, like a relative or a friend or so?
It was a friend.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they had gotten one, and then they're like, "Oh, you really like it?" And like when you're working out, you track your workouts and all this other stuff. And I was like, "Yeah, okay, maybe." But then I was like, I'm not going to get it." And then they had decided that they were like, "Well, you know what? Here you go." And they just gifted it to me, and I was like, "All right, cool, thanks." And then
Nice.
I wasn't really thinking I was going to get much use out of it. But
Right.
I was seriously wrong.
Yeah, back in that time frame, like 2015, and so there were a lot of skeptics, even people who I work with at 9to5Mac, who were like, either no way or I don't know if this will be useful or not. And it's like, what do I need this for when the iPhone can do everything and more? And I had come from using a Pebble smartwatch, and then I sold that before the Apple Watch was. When the Apple Watch was like heavily rumored, and it was probably like a year and a half before it came out, but I wanted to get like my full value from the Pebble, and I had missed that functionality, and I just wore like a digital watch in the meantime because I'd gotten used to wearing a watch. And then when the Apple Watch came out, from like my perspective of like not wearing like analog watches but like wearing digital watches, I guess it was. And then the Pebble, it was like all that plus more. It had all the basic things I wanted the Pebble to have done before, like not just see messages, but respond to them. Having Siri on the watch was like, wow, that opens up a lot of doors. But that's really cool. I've gifted friends and family Apple Watches before where I don't think that they would buy it on their own. And I just want them to have either the health benefits or the stay in touch benefits. And it sticks with them, and eventually like they'll upgrade their watch or like gift it to somebody else and buy them a new one,
Yep.
So that's awesome to hear. And then also 12 to 13 watches. Wow. I guess that's more typical for like analog watches, right? Like a collector's thing.
Yeah. I definitely was more of a collector's thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people who have watches have usually 3 or 4 at least, because they have different looks and feels, and so yeah.
It's just like changing your watch face on your Apple Watch, but it's a physical thing you do, I suppose.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wish I could justify because I'm in so deep, I would definitely collect Apple Watches. But I've done, it always plagues me where I've got a surplus and I want to share them with people who I think would benefit from them. So like my first watch I gave to my brother. I currently, I've never kept an old watch for long enough to like repurpose it, but, I did buy a Series 3 when I already had Series 4 and it was like refurbished and cheap and everything. And so, I did that just for like the sleep tracking stuff, and to have like
Right.
24-hour, heart rate data basically. And so now I'm permanently going to have two, but it's always a temptation when I meet someone who doesn't have one to like, let me give you this one and I'll figure it out later. But that's awesome. And, now I want to talk about some of your fitness journey because, listeners can go and look at your Instagram and I encourage them to follow you because you post some super motivational stuff. Like when I say Apple Watch warrior, like you're just a warrior in general. And ages would talk about. I'm 29. I think you're in your mid 40s. Is that right?
Yep. I'm 45.
Oh, nailed it. So, this is something that motivates me is seeing people who, you've got 16 years on me, I think, if I can do my math right.
Mm-hmm.
And, I often find, especially right now with the coronavirus kind of shaking up the world, all of my races that are usually my motivators for like, that's the target goal, work out now to achieve your goal then, have been canceled or postponed.
Right.
I began the year with like, I'm going to do a half marathon that I at Disney in April. And it would be number 7. And my goal for that was a sub 2 hour for the first time. I've always done like 2.5 hours to 2:10. And then that got canceled. Like first the flight was canceled, Disney was closed, and then they finally canceled the race. But and some of that will apply to you because you go to the gym. I want to hear your schedule, but a lot, and just following you and seeing like lifting, moving like 400 pounds of weight over and over, and then the running that you do as well, like really motivates me. And I wouldn't give up like seeing your content for the world because to me it's like a part of my motivation, seriously. And so I hope people go and follow you because it's really useful seeing, people from across the country, just make this part of their routine and not like something that they don't want to do. But the question here is I think just from like seeing Instagram over the years that you've had all different body types, and it's kind of a sensitive thing to talk about, but, from being, I don't know if out of shape is the right way to say it, but, and then some points you're kind of like smaller. And then most recently you've bulked up, and I mean like muscular. So talk about sort of your experience with working out and kind of your goals for while you're doing it and everything. And then if I'm right or wrong about that kind of journey.
So I used to like lift weights, just kind of bro workout kind of thing, just trying to bodybuilding type of workouts and just like chest day, arm day, that kind of thing. And I never really did legs that much. I would do like the leg press machine, that kind of thing. And then probably, like, I don't know, it was like the early 2010s. My brother was running obstacle course races.
Mm-hmm.
So he had did a warrior dash. And he was like, oh, it's a lot of fun. You should do one with me. So I had ran one with him. And I wasn't running that much at that time. I was like, maybe get on the treadmill or get on the elliptical machine, but really wasn't running. I would like walk for 40 minutes or 30 minutes or something like that. And then I did the obstacle course race and I had a lot of fun, but my body really hated me afterwards because I was not in any kind of cardiovascular shape for that. So then I had so much fun. I was like, all right, I want to do better. I want to do this again, and I want to make my time better. And then plus I have my brother, he's 3 years younger than me. So of course I want to compete with him and at least be in the same ballpark with him when we do these races. So he really smoked me on that first one. So then I started running and it was like really tedious and it was really hard, but I was like, I can do this. And I didn't really have, I had the iPhone and you had different apps or whatever, but they really didn't train you how to run.
Right.
And like how to get faster. So just out there running. And then I had gotten a lot better, and I did more races, and that's what kept me motivated to keep running. So I did a couple of warrior dashes, and then I did Spartan races, and then I did a few Tough Mudders. I think I did three or four Tough Mudders, like 3 or 4 Spartan races, and like 3 or 4 warrior dashes. And they were always a lot of fun. I did a couple other ones that are now defunct, but I did those, and those kept me motivated to run. So like I was running probably 3 to 4 days a week, and then I was getting probably 40, 50 miles a week, something like that.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And then I kind of got bored with running.
Yeah.
I was like, it's just not as much fun.
Taking up a lot of your
anymore.
time. And
it was very time intensive, and it was getting kind of repetitive and boring, and then to find different places to run. So for different scenery, it was having to go someplace, and then carrying your iPhone kind of with headphones, especially back then with the wired headphones,
right,
was just like a pain. So I would still run, but not as much. And then I started getting back into the gym and lifting weights, and I kind of found powerlifting, just looking at YouTube videos and seeing different stuff. And I was like, huh. And then that kind of gave me a new thing to get motivated for the gym, was to get stronger. So like I remember starting out, I could barely squat 225, and I was benching like 185, and I couldn't even deadlift because I never really did it since like high school.
right.
And it was slowly but surely learning the movements and really sticking to it, and then seeing how every week I would be stronger, because the program that I was training with when I first started was a 5x5, where I would do 5 sets of 5 reps for each exercise, and each week it will go up, like 5 pounds for bench, 5 pounds for squats, and like 10 pounds for deadlifts. So each time I did it, I would be stronger, and it was more motivating for me to be stronger and keep me going to the gym. And then so also, as I was getting stronger, I was eating more. So then I got bigger.
Right.
So then as I got bigger and I got stronger, the running kind of fell further and further back. And then it was like, well, what's more important to me right now? Is it running, or is it getting stronger? And getting stronger was more important. And then by this time, I was really using the Apple Watch more for tracking my workouts. In the gym, there was a couple different apps I would like mess with, and then switch them, going back and forth between apps. But they help me track and using Apple Watch with the heart rate and everything. So I was getting that fitness tracking that I wanted, that I would get with the runs, but now lifting weights. So kind of went that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I did a couple of powerlifting competitions, and I really like going to the gym and moving heavy weights. I feel accomplished when I can squat 400 pounds, or when I bench over 300 pounds, and I deadlift way more than I ever thought I could. And to see the continued progression has been really, really a lot of fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
But recently, probably like in the past 3 or 4 months, a friend of mine, she just had a baby, and the whole time she was pregnant, she was running. And of course, she would post everything on Instagram, and I was like, wow, that's like really cool that she's still out there running.
Dedication, yeah.
And dedicated to keep running, even though she's pregnant. And then as soon as she had the baby, and as soon as she was allowed, she started really slowly, but started running again. And I just found that like really inspirational. I was like, man, I kind of miss running. And so probably like a month ago, I said, okay, I'm going to start running again. And then with the Apple Watch, and I have the Nike edition for the Series 5.
Oh, nice.
And then using the Nike Run Club app, and with the coaching sessions and everything with that, it just kind of made it easier for me to kind of cycle back into running.
Mm-hmm.
So of course I can't run like I used to, and I know it. And that's like one of the biggest struggles I think people have, fitness in general, and like be it running or lifting weights or whatever, is they expect to be good at it like immediately.
Right.
And they expect like immediate results, where that's not really realistic at all. Like I know, like I used to run 8-minute miles, but I know that's not realistic for me right now. I know I can't do that. So, and that's fine. I can go out there and run what I need to run using the Nike Run Club app, and I feel better after each run. Like each time I say, "All right, this is what you're supposed to do today," I feel better, and I feel like I'm building. So now it's like trying to become more well-rounded. Well, I can't really lift weights right now because of everything that's going on, like gyms being closed and everything.
Right.
But I can still get out and run, and I can still build that part of the journey and incorporate it when the gyms do open back up and life starts getting back more to normal. Because before, I was going to the gym probably 3 to 4 days a week lifting, and I wasn't, well, like I said, I wasn't really doing any cardio. But now the goal is to run 3 days a week and probably still lift 3 or 4 days a week, but shorter runs, nothing more than a 5K or anything like that, and kind of schedule it around. Usually like on the weekends, get a longer run in. During the week, do speed work or something like that, and kind of find a more of a balance. So that's the goal now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely a journey to like going from when I was running more to when that tapered off, and then as I lifted more, you see my body change from almost like a more of a runner's body to a lifter's body.
Right.
And now I kind of want to get something in between.
Yeah. I love the pictures that you post where it's like, this was a year ago and this is today. It's like, you were like, like you say, the runner's body, like you were like skinny, like lean. And then like today, like, I went across you, like, you were my enemy. Like, man, you look great. And both are, the goals that you have at the time. My friend, Jacob Knight, who was the second guest on this podcast, is is sort of on the same path where he, in college, he was a male cheerleader. And so he was like, could lift a lot of weight and everything. But he was kind of like a hefty dude. And then he got really lean, from running with me. And then he got back into the gym, and that being his main focus, and like we stopped running together as much. And then he got like really bulky, and then he really could not run anymore, like at the same way. And I'm not quite sure that he's really found the balance there yet either, but it's like, it's, you kind of got to go to the extreme to see what's the other thing that you want to do. This week, 9to5Mac Watch Time is sponsored by FlickType Keyboard, the easiest way to type directly from your Apple Watch. It's no secret that the Apple Watch is a great way to receive messages and stay connected, but the biggest challenge is responding to those messages. Features like scribble and voice dictation are great in some situations, but more often than not, they're inaccurate and slow, or just not possible to use. That's where FlickType Keyboard comes in. With FlickType, you can quickly compose messages on your Apple Watch using a real keyboard. FlickType Keyboard works just as you would expect. You can double tap the spacebar to insert a period, just like on the iPhone. Use a digital crown for alternative word suggestions, emoji, and punctuation. And FlickType is also insanely accurate thanks to a sophisticated correction algorithm. Due to limitations in watchOS, FlickType Keyboard works best with the Messages app, but it's also integrated into some of my favorite watchOS apps, such as Chirp for Twitter. There's even a dedicated FlickType keyboard complication for your Apple Watch face, making it super easy to access the keyboard whenever you need it. FlickType Keyboard is available on the App Store as a one-time purchase for $1.99. Download it at the link in the show notes below to show your support for 9to5Mac Watch Time. My thanks to FlickType for their support for 9to5Mac Watch Time. A few things there. So, one is that for running myself, it was the Nike Apple Watch and Nike Run Club that taught me. I did elliptical for about a year. and lost a lot of weight just doing elliptical every day at home. Which was a real treat to not have to go anywhere to do it. Just like go in the office and like, even on like work hours and everything.
Right.
I kind of want that back now because I ended up selling the elliptical whenever I would just run, and I was like, I don't need that thing anymore. And it did take a long, several months to get in shape, losing, that like any kind of workout activity, going from like, couch potato to trying to work out and do it well, from running even, it's like, it took several months, it was a process from like March to, I guess like the full journey was like a year of like, I've never ran before. I'm going to do elliptical now, to eventually learning to run, and then feeling like I was pretty good at it. Like, 8-minute miles, for example.
Right.
It took time. And then I've mentioned in the podcast before, but when, my son was born, my second kid, then running was like not important anymore. It was like not as easy either to just like leave home and leave my son with my wife and like, have her not be able to get away. And so I learned the lesson that while it takes a lot of time to get in shape, it also takes a lot of time to get out of shape. Like, if you're just starting out with working out, like you'll be frustrated at how you don't get results overnight or over a month. The same is true for the inverse. If you stop and you just kind of like ride the waves of your progress and don't maintain anything at all, it does take several months to get out of shape. And the change is so gradual that like when you look at yourself in the mirror every day, it's not that different. But then, a year later, it's like, I'm back to where I started, So it's something else. In the gym, you use an app, or you post a screenshot from an app that shows like the focus of what you worked out on your body today. What is that app?
That app is, hold on, Fitness Point.
Fitness Point. Okay. What does it do?
So I use this app. Like I'll put all my workouts in there. So I'll kind of describe put the exercise I'm going to do that day for like chest day, leg day, deadlifts, or chest day volume. And then you can put it has a large assortment of exercises. And they do it by muscle group or by the muscle. And you can like kind of pick and choose, and you can put them all together. And then I just use the app basically for tracking my reps. The Apple Watch does great as far as like heart rate and everything and tracking the workout, but it doesn't do, especially using the Apple apps, that you can't like track your reps or
Right.
Or really what exercise you're doing at that moment. So I have to use a third-party app for that. This app, I've been using this app for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And I paid for the pro version. I think it was like $2.99, or it might have been $4.99. It was something like that. But it like keeps logs, and then you can look at different charts and seeing like how your progress has gone and everything. So it's a really good app, and it's pretty simple to use. And I just use that really for tracking the reps and what exercises I'm doing and rest time. There's another thing like with the Apple apps, you can't really do rest time when you're doing like the weights and everything. You're just basically tracking the time, and it does your heart rate and everything through the time. But you can't really do rest time. You can't do like reps and everything. So I had to use a third-party apps for that part. And some of them work with the watch. They don't work as well as I would like them to.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're sometimes, especially like there's an app I was using. I don't remember. I don't have it on my phone anymore, but they did really good with tracking. But when I would try to like say, okay, I just did a set, like a lot of times it wouldn't track the set right, or sometimes the app would just crash on the watch. So I got frustrated and stopped using it and went back to what I've been doing. So I kind of used the Apple app for tracking the overall workout, and then use other app for like tracking my reps and what exercises I've done.
Yeah. I always see it on Instagram, like, as in a group of your pictures, like, what you did today, like what you showed in the app. And it's like, as a techie kind of person, I find it interesting, fascinating, and motivating to see, like, it's not just showing up and like moving a lot of weight around. It's programmatic, it's planned, there's kind of a learning curve to it, I think, because, something that you do is really cool also is not just like post a picture in the gym, but do a video of like a recap of what you've done today. And there's a lot of things I like about it. Like, one thing is your delivery is just so chill and like cool. And, it makes it seem, it isn't like, lifted all the noodle, it's just like very casual, and it makes like, the idea of doing the same thing more approachable. But also I appreciate the fact that there's so much, like, when you describe what you did, the number of what you did, what the plan is, it's like, it feels like it's over my head unless I were to learn it. And so, it's clear that you're a smart person who isn't just like showing up and like lifting weights, but there's a lot of intentionality in it and planning. And that's really cool to see. And then seeing the app is like, I've always been curious what app it is because I didn't recognize it. And, I'll have to check it out now.
Yeah, it's a pretty good app. And yeah, like I said before, when I first started going to, like, when I would go to the gym previously, it was always just, all right, just do the regular bro kind of workout, this 5 or 3 sets of 10 of bench, or doing this or that. And it was hard to get progress or show progress that way for me. And I really didn't understand like what I was supposed to be doing. But then when I started doing powerlifting, I did a couple of online programs, and then I read a lot of different stuff. And then, so now, like, I kind of just program myself and kind of go by feel, kind of go by like, all right, this is what I've been doing. This is what my goal is for the end of this cycle. Because what I'll do is I'll train for a certain amount of time, like 12 weeks or 16 weeks, and say, okay, this is what I want to be able to lift the end, and then try to build towards that, building in times where I know I'm not going to be able to lift this heavy because fatigue builds up or whatever. And so, like, it definitely has become more research and more planning for me than I thought. Like, sure, it's like, wow, this is like a lot more, but it's cool. And I like that part of it. The nerd in me, the science, the geek in me, yeah, is definitely one that's like, oh, and I kind of, once I started doing it, it was like building into it. And same thing when I was running more, it was trying to learn how to run and pace, and watching videos and reading and trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong. Like, how can I get better, and how can I get faster, and how can I build my endurance and everything. Yeah. So,
yeah, like some of the, I know more about running than other stuff. Like some of the, ultra marathon stuff where you run like 100 miles over, 24 hours. You couldn't just show up and do it. You've got to plan ahead, and you've got to be strategic about it. And it's, and it does get to scientific levels, and like to know how is your body going to react at this point. And it does take training as well. But so much of it is like a mental game, not just self-motivation, but also like literally what is my body doing, and being very aware of it. So I love seeing that advanced stage. And it's really cool to hear you say that you got into it planning, but then to take it to the next level, you've got to learn more, and it keeps you engaged, because it's like with anything else, to get past the basics, and you've got to, put in the work and everything. So that's really cool to see.
Yep. Yeah. And then, like, for the chillness in the gym, that's because that's like my therapy. Yeah. Like, that's like the time, and it's, to me, it's like no stress, because it's not like I'm doing it for money. It's not like I'm trying to like be the strongest person in the world. I just want to be the strongest version of myself. And that is like fun for me. And yeah, sometimes I get mad at myself if I don't do something quite right, or if a lift doesn't go like I want. But at the same time, it's like, okay, I record like all my sets. And like, that's like the greatest thing about having the iPhone and the Apple Watch together, is I can use the Apple Watch to to start and stop the recording and everything, and then be able to listen to the music through the Apple Watch with AirPods. It makes everything like that part better.
Yeah.
And then I can record it and see and be like, oh, this is where I broke down at. This is where my form was off and everything. And that's been like a big thing as far as me getting better and stronger, is like looking at all the technique and all thinking about the cues and to be able to see it like in video, like real time.
Yeah.
Been like invaluable.
That would require a coach before all of this. And then at least, an iPod and like wired earphones. And we've come so far from all of that. That's really neat. What's some of the music that you listen to when you work out? I'm curious. Maybe like a few favorites.
To, a little bit of everything. Like I listen to Metallica. I listen to Eminem. I listen to maybe some old Kanye West.
Yeah.
What else? A little bit of LL Cool J.
Yeah.
It's just a very wide range. Guns N' Roses. So usually it's hip hop, older hip hop, and like metal music from like hair metal from like the late 80s and 90s.
Right. Kind of what you grew up on and yeah. I've got the same thing, but shifted maybe 10, 15 years. It's really neat. Do you do Apple Music?
Yep.
Do you share your playlist on Apple Music?
I do.
Cool.
I do.
I'll get those from you and I'll put those in the show notes because I think that just the difference in music taste and everything that you've got there, I think that would be something people would be interested in. And then last question. I know you like comics and everything. Who's like your who is a character that you sort of I've had experiences where like I go and see a comic book movie or something and I feel like an adrenaline rush and I want to go for a run and get it out and like I'm channeling that character. Do you have someone or a few characters that you sort of think about or kind of like model after when you're in the gym?
Well, probably especially when I was running and doing obstacle course races, it was Daredevil.
Cool.
It was probably like the one. And then now, of course, with the strength stuff and everything, it's more of like the Hulk or Thor.
Yeah.
I think probably more the Hulk. And it's just that time to just let it all out and then just really push myself.
That's right. That's right. And then you've got like the Professor Hulk side when you're done.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm looking at everything.
Yeah.
Professor Hulk time.
That's awesome. Thor would be my buddy Jacob's thing, and he's got like the hammer, and his hair's really long and everything. He's got that down. And then like last question, how is the coronavirus situation affecting your routine? Because it's one of those things where for me, it's messed up. What my goal was the half marathon in April, and then that went away. And now I've used that as an excuse to, well, I don't have to stick to this training anymore that I was already slacking at. And there are some different cues that I'm looking at to kind of figure out, well, and I've gotten some good advice, like, putting in the miles in the spring, gives you smiles in the fall when you're doing races. And so I've got a lot of reasons to be motivated, but how's it affecting your routine and what are you doing about it?
So it definitely affects like the lifting because I live in an apartment, so I don't have access to like a home gym or anything like that.
Right.
So that part is kind of like, okay, that's kind of on hold. So I work out at home. I just started yesterday, challenging myself doing 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100 body weight squats. And I was doing every minute on the minute, I would do 10. So I would do 10 push-ups, then however many I could get to, and then for that minute, then the next minute, I would do 10 more until I did 100. And then I did the same thing with sit-ups. And then I did the same thing with squats, body weight squats. And then that's just to keep the muscles moving and kind of help me maintain my form a little bit, especially for squats. Mm-hmm. And just to build up that volume. And then, like I said, I already started running. So thankfully, the coronavirus hasn't really affected that.
That's right.
Part. So I can still get out and run. And then the weather is finally starting to break and get nicer. Yeah. So the grass is starting to turn green and I can just get out and enjoy that part of it as well. So the lifting part will suffer. And I know that And that's fine. I can still run. I can still do some stuff at home.
Mm-hmm.
At least keep a baseline fitness level.
Yeah, making the best of it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Being adaptive, and you're still, importantly, Shawn, you're still sharing on Instagram what you're doing as you go, even if it's not at the gym, which I love. Remind people, Shawn, one more time, where can people find you on Instagram, YouTube, and I believe you're on Twitter too, right?
Yep. So on, I believe all three is s.musing. It's SDOTMUSINGS, and yeah. That's for me on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter.
Awesome. And I'll have all of those in the 9to5Mac post as well, so people can just look at the show notes with the podcast and click and follow you. And I seriously encourage people to do that because, it's so helpful having someone like you, Shawn, out there putting in the work and so consistently that when personally, I feel like, do I even care about running anymore? It's like, even if running isn't what you're doing, it's showing up at the gym or adapting your routine to at home in the situation that we're in now that, is like just one more reason for me not to go veg out in the kitchen and forget about ever working out again. So I appreciate that. And thanks so much for being on the podcast this week.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me. It's been great. I've listened to you for quite a few years now. So
awesome. Thank you so much for that.
I appreciate it.
Also, I want to thank FlickType one more time for sponsoring 9to5Mac Watch Time this week. That's FlickType Keyboard. Use the link in the podcast show notes in your podcast player or on 9to5Mac.com to support the show and download FlickType Keyboard. I had fun with this one because it's a keyboard app that I hadn't tested before the sponsorship, but I knew about it, and I did have the beta version of it. But I was surprised at how good it is for sending messages, especially. And if you can find it in other apps like Chirp for Twitter, it's really great. So check it out. If you're just curious about what can the watch do, what should maybe Apple do in a future version of the watch software, check out FlickType Keyboard. It's really remarkable. It surprises you at how good of a keyboard it can be in such a small package.